The reality is that sometimes people with worms don't have any symptoms whatsoever, which is why it's still important, that actually one deworms every 6 months. When should you stop deworming? There's no real recommendation on that. Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Renner. I'm a consultant pediatrician. You might know me as the Noisy Naija Pediatrican on Instagram. And we are here on Pediatrics To-Go. And of course, I'm hosting today. And I'm talking about worms in children today. Now, let me just give you a story. The first few weeks of residency, what happened to me was that I went to the ward, but admitted the child, and for some strange reason, the child started vomiting, and lo and behold, a worm plopped out and landed on the floor. We sent it to the lab, and it turned out that it was a worm called Ascaris, which is one of the commonest worms that we have here in Nigeria. Now, everybody asked me, Dr. Renner, when should I start deworming my child? It depends on where you are living, because, Dr. Sanusi is here, and she might tell us, in America or in the UK, they don't know what worm medicines look like. But in Nigeria, the World Health Organization has recommended that we begin to deworm our children starting from 1 year, because we have a large prevalence. What I mean by that is that we have a large number of the population having worm infestation, meaning that it's really easy for worms to go from one person to the other. And so, as a public health intervention, WHO says, please deworm your children starting from 1 year every 6 months. Now, how do you know if a child has worms? I guess that's the question. The reality is that sometimes people with worms don't have any symptoms whatsoever, which is why it's still important, that actually one deworms every 6 months. When should you stop deworming? There's no real recommendation on that. But if you think that you are being exposed in one way or the other, either by the water you're drinking, or maybe you're in contact with a lot of things that might be contaminated, like soil or food, or you're walking or living in a riverine area, or you're wading through water, then please deworm for as long as you think you are still being exposed to these risk factors. So let me address my co-host. Although it's actually Dr. Sanusi's show, I'm just barging in. So, what in the UK, for instance, the US rather, the US. What's the experience and the recommendation for deworming, if there is one?
Well, that's a good question, because I'm not sure that there's a. Well, the honest truth is we do see a lot of worms. Well, we see pinworms.
Pinworms, so the itchy.
Yes, children come in with itchy bum bums, and you say to them, is it worse? And the parents will tell you on the history. They wake up in the night and they are scratching like there's no tomorrow. And a lot of times they open up. I tell them, just check and see, and they say, it's like threads. Like when sometimes you put cream, like if you put like thing in the diaper area, and then it kind of like gets into the folds. They say, it looks like whitish, and then in the morning it's all gone. Those worms, they have a timer in their brain. They tend to come out at midnight, and they go itchy, and then they go into and a lot of girls too, when they come in with painful urination, we usually treat them for pinworms, just because based on the history and the way the growing area looks, we go ahead and just treat them presumptively. But most parents will tell you it's always at midnight that they wake up and they're screaming and crying and itchy all over. So we do see a lot of pinworms.
Pinworms.
Yes, and for the treatment for that, we just do the regular albendazole kind of thing, But we did have a child who came back from India, and the parents brought this little round worm in a bottle. So we sent it to the lab for, and then hookworm too. We've seen dog hookworm.
Yes.
It was the visceral lava migrant. Okay. We saw it. There was a mom that said, this child, there's a line that started on the stomach, and it was just going gradually. So when we looked, it was actually dog. Is it tapeworm?
So usually
from the pet. They had pets. Yeah. So we ended up sending to infectious disease to treat, because it's not something that we do all the time. Yeah, but
Interesting. No, it's not routinely deworming. No, they have to prove it. So they need evidence. So they look for like the ova or the eggs, and or if the mom comes and says, I saw worms in the toilet, things like, then we treat. We don't just routinely treat. Now, saying that, I've got 3 kids. They're grown up. First one is 24, second one 21, third one is 19. Up to 2 years ago, I was still deworming them every 6 months. And then after a while, my older one was like, Mommy, really?
It's okay. It's enough.
It's okay. There's a lot, But my son, all the nonsense he eats, every so often I still make him sort of deworm himself.
We're always in Nigeria.
Exactly. But also, so I mentioned in the beginning, I worked in South Africa for a few years, and I was in one of the clinics, and so the mom came in with the child. Child was about, I don't know, 6 or 7. I said, "Oh, how can I help you today? What's the problem?" And then she didn't answer. She just opened this plastic bag, brought out this tub, put it on my table. It was full of. I'm like, I actually like
real.
Like, oh my gosh. So I treated. I said, come back in 2 weeks. I treated again. Come back in 2 weeks. I treated
My
again.
goodness.
One soft treatment is not going to work.
Pass these worms out.
Yeah.
It was a lot,
My
So
mom took it and put it in a bag.
oh yeah, situations like that, you can't just treat once and say no. They need to come back. Some people say like 4 weeks or whatever, come back and treat again. So that's so very common in children, more common than you think actually. Yeah.
So I mean, what I guess I just say is that when it comes to preventing worm infestations, I think hygiene. So good source of water, making sure that their nails are clipped short, hand washing before meals. Thorough cooking of meat, including pork or beef, depending on what you're eating. Also, fish should be thoroughly cooked. I mean, I'm not going to do medium rare anytime soon. I'm going to make sure that cow.
It's a Nigerian thing.
It's not a Nigerian thing. No, make sure that beef is there, crying from the heat. No red whatsoever. And also making sure that vegetables that can be eaten raw, especially those ones that are harvested from the soil, even like lettuce, are thoroughly washed. And hopefully that should prevent the transmission of the eggs. Because the ones are just looking for where to live, and they just happen to be really nice and warm and fuzzy.
Right.
So
they're in the gut, right?
in the gut. So I hope you found this episode very useful. So the recommendation for WHO for Nigeria is that you start to deworm from the first year, from 12 months, every 6 months, as long as you think that the child is being exposed to any of those risks that are considered high for worm infestation. So that's it for today on Pediatrics To Go. Hope you had fun on this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.